Hello, everybody, and welcome to Vikings Latest. I'm your host, Cole Smith, and today we're going to be talking about the draft as it approaches, kind of touch on some of the free agents moves that have happened and how that could affect the draft plans. But first, we're going to start with a rumor over the weekend, a draft trade suggestion from NFL on Fox, where they explored the possibility of the Vikings trading 2024 first round pick JJ McCarthy to the Los Angeles Rams for the Rams' second round pick, which would be 61st overall. Would you do this? Personally, I'd rather not do this. Even though JJ McCarthy didn't look super great this past season, it would be scaring me that Sean McVay and the Rams are calling and asking about him. Kind of makes me feel kind of like Sam Darnold's situation where McCarthy's career is going to turn around because he goes to the Rams. Sean McVay completely overhauls his career. Probably wouldn't be starting right away. It'd probably be sitting for a year behind Matthew Stafford, but you learn from the best in the business. The one thing that would maybe possibly help the Vikings feel better about this is the fact that it would be a second round pick, and there are options in the second round where the Vikings could address some big needs. Positions possibly like a safety, something that they wouldn't be addressing in the first round. So this could be a possibility. But if it were me, I'd hold on to McCarthy, let him sit, watch Kyler Murray do it the right way. Carson Wentz probably be the first guy off the bench. So that would take pressure off of JJ, who wasn't able to practice much as a rookie after he tore his meniscus, missed the whole season. And then last year, where he really didn't have much of a competition throughout the offseason. So that thrust JJ into the starting role, and really there weren't many other options once Carson Wentz was lost for the season due to his own shoulder injury. So personally, I'd rather the Vikings hold on to McCarthy, let him sit, let him develop. He is still only 23 years old. Watch Kyler Murray develop from there and just kind of take in. You only have 10 career starts under your belt. See how it's really supposed to be done. And then let's see if JJ is able to improve the year after that. Or maybe he doesn't improve and then you move off of him anyway. I just don't really love the idea of trading him, especially if you're trading him to the LA Rams in Sean McVay, who is arguably the best offensive mind in the NFL right now. So, what do you think about the Vikings possibly taking a receiver, though, in the draft? If they were to acquire the second round pick from the Rams or even the 49th overall pick, who the Vikings originally have, could the Vikings address receiver there? Alec Lewis talked on his own show that he believes the Vikings could go receiver earlier than people are expecting. The Vikings do have Justin Jefferson, of course, and they exercise Jordan Addison's fifth-year option. But obviously, Addison's off-field issues have always been kind of an issue. And even if Addison stays good off the field, and him and Jefferson are ready for the season, Vikings don't really have much depth behind them. Remember last year, injuries, hamstring injury to Justin Jefferson, Jalen Naylor had a hand injury, and then Addison being lost for the first 3 games of the year, serving a suspension. That led to the Vikings acquiring Adam Thielen for essentially a fourth-round pick right before the season. Now, by the end of the season, all three, Addison, Jefferson, and Naylor, were all healthy. But in a pinch, the Vikings really needed to do something. They kind of overspent for a veteran who knew the system in Thielen. Now the Vikings could have used that draft pick, and obviously, over the long haul, didn't actually need Thielen. I'd rather the Vikings go after a receiver at some point in the draft. I don't think it's going to be first round, but the second round, they do have options. Jeremy Bernard out of Alabama, he's an option. Chris Brazell out of Tennessee, he's an option. Those guys will be like prime candidates for the 49th overall pick. Like they're kind of positioned right there in the consensus big boards. So the value and need would mesh. You're not overspending to address a need right there. And the Vikings run enough 3 receiver sets, could absolutely use a wide receiver 3. Otherwise, could be looking at somebody like Antonio Williams, Clemson wide receiver. He was chatting it up a lot with Keenan McCardell, Vikings receivers coach, during the Clemson Pro Day last month. He'd be an option. He's slated a little bit lower than Bernard and Brazell, but he could absolutely be an option if the Vikings were to acquire the Rams' second round pick, or if the Vikings trade down a little bit from 49, acquired a few more picks, could still get Williams, still address that need, and get extra draft capital as well. Now, some people might be wondering why the Vikings didn't just try going for somebody in free agency, somebody like DeAndre Hopkins, who has a history with Kyler Murray from their time back in Arizona. Hopkins said that he'd love to play with Kyler again, but he still remains unsigned. Uh, that's kind of been the Vikings' approach to free agency this year. It's been very conservative. They have spent the second least amount of money through salary cap this offseason. I don't know if they're just trying to really go completely opposite of what they did in 2025, where they spent a lot of money on Javon Hargrave, Jonathan Allen, two defensive linemen who are already cut, Ryan Kelly, center, who played really well but only started 8 games before concussions derailed his season. I think the Vikings are just really trying to hone in, make sure that they keep that money in house. Really, their big money spending this offseason has been like Aaron Jones, who's coming back, Eric Wilson coming back, guys that they know, even though they're a little bit older, but because they haven't drafted very well the past several years, that's why they're bringing in the older players. Seems like they're just trying to get right, make sure that they've kind of overcorrected for what they've done in the past, see if they can address these needs in the draft, and then possibly short-term deals, smaller deals post-draft when the needs are still on the roster, address the needs there. Maybe that's when you try getting somebody like DeAndre Hopkins, even if you were to address that position with Brazil, Bernard, or Antonio Williams, somebody like that. But yeah, so far the Vikings have been very conservative. I don't know if they try changing that up after the draft. Or they try making like a big time trade after the draft. Maybe just trying to see where they're at. Possibly use that money, spread it to 2027 where they have a lot more cap space. Because right now they're pretty tight to the cap, even after they have made these veteran releases over the past couple months. So, and finally, like I said, Aaron Jones, he's coming back with Jordan Mason, sorry, at running back. Does that mean that the Vikings can't take a running back, though, in the draft? I do think the Vikings do go running back in the draft. I think that they are prime candidates for one of their third round picks. They had picked 82nd overall and 97th overall. That could put them in position to draft somebody like Arkansas's Mike Washington, who is the fastest running back at the combine. Could put them in position for Emmett Johnson, Nebraska running back, who's a Minneapolis native. Or the draft day scenario on the first round is that the Vikings acquired Jadarian Love, who's a Notre Dame stud. If he were to slide past like 6 or 7, then you're going to start thinking about the Vikings possibly trading up. I don't want the Vikings to actually trade up. At least I don't want them to be trading away future first round picks for Love. I'd rather him just like slide. I don't think him sliding all the way to 18 is very realistic, but that's like my unrealistic draft day dream. I want the Vikings to get Jadarian Love, but I also don't want them to trade very much for him either. So I'd rather him fall to like 12 or something before we start even thinking about trading up for him. But Jordan Mason, he's never carried more than 159 carries in a season. Aaron Jones is 31. He's getting older. He's always kind of struggled to stay healthy on the field. You can always use a third option. And then obviously, if Jones doesn't come back in 2027, which he probably won't, you can use whoever your draft pick is this year to be either running back 2 behind Jordan Mason, or he just takes over the running back 1 position all by himself. And then Jordan Mason could still be on the team, could be departed. But then you have your option instead next year where you absolutely need a running back. It's one of those positions, kind of like receiver, where it's not just a glaring need where you don't have anybody. It's kind of like how center is right now, or safety, where you absolutely need to leave the draft with those positions. I do think, though, that this is a great draft to where you can get that depth with a premium with a good draft pick. You're not overspending. I think that these positions of need at receiver and running back, they kind of mesh with where the Vikings are slotted to pick. I think the Vikings could get good value and instant contributors from these draft day selections, because we've seen over the past several years the Vikings have really struggled to draft and get players onto the field. It's one of the main reasons that Kwesi Adofo-Mensah got fired at the end of January, and why Rob Brzezinski is now the guy at the head of the table. Vikings are going to be looking for guys who had better college production over projects, like they've done in several of the past drafts. So you're going to see guys who are, maybe it's not so much that they have like the height, weight, speed, skill set with minimal college production. It's going to be maybe the opposite. More of a sure thing. Get them on the field, instant contributors. that you don't have to be scrambling to fix these roster holes next year in free agency. You can take advantage of the draft that's coming up next year, build on this, keep stacking good drafts to make up for the past 4 years where most of the draft picks have been failures. So that is it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Tune in tomorrow for the next episode of Vikings Latest. I am Cole Smith. Good to see you. Let's skull.